This is gum lesson number 3, lay versus lie. This lesson today is going to take a little bit longer just because lay versus lie is probably one of the most confusing usages that we ever look at when we look at two words that sound similar and kind of do similar things. But we'll try to go through things pretty quickly. So first of all, the big question is, why are these words so confusing? How do we mess these up? Well, it has to do with the fact that when we take the words and we conjugate them, so we kind of look at like the past tense versus the present tense versus the past participle and the present participle. Once we kind of look at all of these, that's where it gets confusing. So if you look at this chart, it kind of shows us these three things. So the two words lie and lay in present tense verbs. And then once we look at them in past tense, you notice that there's an obvious thing happening here, right? That the present tense of lay also matches with the past tense of lie. So when we're talking or when we're writing, it's really easy to get these messed up if we're not paying close attention to what tense we're using. So let's try to make things a little bit easier and just look at the present tense. So first of all, lie means to recline or rest. So it's something that's done. So you do it, or another person does it, or an object does it. Okay? So that's kind of the key point here, is that a thing, a noun, is doing this. All right? So in this case, we have like you lie down, the rocks lie in the ocean, and grandma lies with the dogs. The key operator here is that we can add down to each of these sentences. So the rocks lie down in the ocean and grandma lies down with the dogs, and it makes perfect sense. So that li in recline is an easy way to remember that we want to use lie when we're talking about resting. Lay, on the other hand, means to place. So before, where you have the object that's doing the reclining, to lay means you're doing that action to an object. Excuse me. So this has to happen to an object. So like you lay a blanket over grandma, or the chicken lays an egg. Okay? And again, place, like you're placing, like you're laying it down, that's where we get that lay. Okay? So that's your little trick for how to remember which one is which. That would be all fine and good, but now we need to make things a little bit more difficult. And here's how they get more difficult. We'll start by looking at the present participle. So if we look at the present participle, then we have laying versus lying. And again, they look really similar. So we use the present participle when we're talking about something that is happening right now, and it will continue to happen. So I am laying this book next to your bed, or she is lying down for a minute or two. Again, lying still means reclining, and laying still means placing. It's just changing the way that that verb kind of unfolds for us. All right? Another way to look at this then too is when we look at the past tense. And like we said before, this is where things get really confusing. So she lay upon the mossy undergrowth. Okay? So here, it's the past tense of lie, which means that she is reclining on the mossy undergrowth. And of course, when we look at the past tense of lay, we're going to use laid. So he laid the keys by the door. If we go even further and we look at the past participle, so this is to say that something happened in the past and it continues up into the present, our words change once again. So I had lain in the grass for a short break, and she had laid her doll over there. So one more time, lain, in this case, means recline. Laid means to place or to put it down. So to kind of recap, again, if we have to make things easy, there's no real easy way to do it other than to slow down and really, really think about what it is that you're trying to say. Is an object being placed, or is the object taking the action of reclining? So again, if we look at the li in recline, that reminds us that it's lie. And if we look at the la in place, then we know that we are placing something down, we are laying it down. All right? The other ones that you would want to remember are the words that showed up in that chart. And again, the laying and lying thing, it happens and you can't get around it. But if you can remember that lie is the present tense, lay is the past tense, and lain is that past participle, and the same thing goes with lay, laid, and laid, you're in really good shape. So these two things that you're looking at right here, those are the things that you really want to focus on when we talk about lie versus lay.